interviewed somebody and they said, oh, well, why are we doing that when we have all these needs at home? Yeah, we're doing it because we're protecting democracy. And that's what we have to do.
This is my video update on this Sunday afternoon, February the 18th. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the Munich Security Conference. And what do you do if you are the globalist political class and Project Ukraine is failing? Avdeyevka has fallen to the Putin. Your economies are in recession. Your farmers are on strike. What do you do if you are the globalist political class? You throw a party. Of course, you throw a party. Toga, toga, toga. Yeah, that's what they did. They threw a party. The Build Freedom Night. That is what this party was called, the Freedom Night Party. Build is reporting the free world stands together. And I think Build actually sponsored this. Yeah, Build sponsored the Munich Security Conference Freedom Night party in Munich. Everyone was there. All the cool kids were there. Ursula was there. Stoltenberg was there. John Kerry was there. David Petraeus, he was there. The Klitschko brothers, they were in attendance. Mayorkas was there. Mayorkas. What the hell is Mayorkas doing in Munich? What is Mayorkas doing in Munich, and what is he doing at the Freedom Night Party? Shouldn't Mayorkas be dealing with the southern border? No, he's in Munich. He's partying it up. Yeah, that's Mayorkas. They served lobster and hamburgers at this party. Not a joke. Lobsters and burgers. And they drank to defeat Putin. That's also not a joke. That was like the theme of the party. Drink to defeat Putin. It's not a joke. This is not a clown world. Yeah, the Freedom Night Party. That must have been a real good time, huh? Drinking some shots to defeat Putin, eating some lobsters and burgers. Maybe a little bit of hanky-panky going on. No doubt the Klitschko brothers, they cleaned up, right? They're like former heavyweight boxing champions. No doubt that they cleaned up, the Klitschko brothers. Yeah. Kerry, though, I'm sure that Kerry probably did well at this party because, you know, he's got like a private plane. So, you know, I can see like Kerry hitting on Annalena. Hey, Annalena, why don't you come back to my private plane? It's a private plane, so, you know, I'm sure that that works in Kerry's favor. That gives Kerry a whole lot of game. Anyway, yeah, that's what they did. They had a party. They had a freaking party in Munich, drinking to defeat Putin. Petraeus was there. Kerry was there. Klitschko, the Klitschko bros. There was no photos of Elensky. I don't think Elensky was at this party. Actually, Elensky was, from what I understand, he was meeting with Macron. And they signed a security deal. Like the security deal that he signed with Germany and with Olaf Scholz. France agrees to support Ukraine for the next 10 years, for as long as they can or as long as it takes. Macron gave Elensky 3 billion euros, and that's that. So he got a security deal from Macron. That's why Elensky wasn't at this party. But it's interesting that the Klitschko brothers were there, huh? I wonder what Ursula and Stoltenberg, Petraeus, and all these people were telling the Klitschko brothers. I wonder what they were telling Klitschko, who is aligned with Poroshenko and with Zaluzhny, at a time when Project Ukraine is falling apart, and many people are blaming Elensky for the collapse of Project Ukraine. Elensky and Syrsky, the new commander. I wonder what they were telling the Klitschko brothers at this party. What was Kerry whispering to the Klitschko brothers as they were drinking their shots to defeating Putin? What was he telling Klitschko? Yeah, you know, Klitschko, bro, I'm just not happy with Volodymyr. Really, John? Well, I've got a thing going on with Zaluzhny, the former commander, and Chocolate King Poroshenko. If you're not happy with Volodymyr, maybe you can give us a shot. Let me relay that back to Sullivan and Blinken, and let's bring Stoltenberg into this conversation. Hey, Stolty, come here and drink a shot with us. Klitschko here has some ideas as to how we can save Project Ukraine. Really? What ideas do you have there, Klitschko? I wonder if they were having these types of conversations. Anyway, Avdeyevka. Avdeyevka has fallen. The Ukraine military has retreated. The Russian Ministry of Defense, they put out a statement and they said that the retreat from Ukraine was absolutely chaotic. It was a catastrophe. It was a complete disaster. The reports are that Syrskyi ordered the retreat on Saturday, but the Ukraine military, trapped in a cauldron, facing annihilation. Many of the Ukraine military were already annihilated by the Russian military. They tried to get out of Avdeyevka on Thursday and Friday any way they could, which essentially meant by foot. They were just trying to find any way out of Avdeyevka, or the lucky ones, the smart ones, they surrendered to the Russians and they got medical attention, medical care, and their lives were saved. But the ones that decided not to surrender to Russia, they tried to get out of Avdeyevka by foot, pretty much. And this was a complete chaotic disaster for the Ukraine military. And Syrskyi ordered the retreat on Saturday, a full day after he realized that this is a complete mess. Then he ordered the retreat to try and make it seem like he has control of the situation. And the narrative that Elensky gave when he was in Munich, and the narrative that Syrskyi is running with, is that they ordered the retreat in order to save Ukrainian soldiers' lives, which is a complete fiction. The thing was a complete mess. And then they came in on Saturday and they said, okay, we better publicly order a retreat so it can look like we're in charge of what's going on. It looks like we have control of what's going on. The exact opposite is actually the case. Anyway, we're getting a lot of reports in Ukraine from Ukrainian media and Ukraine social media accounts where whatever soldiers were able to escape, whatever soldiers did make it out of Avdeyevka, from what I understand, the Azov guys were, the elite Azov guys were completely annihilated. The ones that actually decided to enter Avdeyevka, they were completely annihilated. And many of the Azov guys decided to not even enter Avdeyevka because it was hopeless. And a lot of other elite soldiers, elite brigades of Ukraine were completely demolished in Avdeyevka. But you are getting accounts in social media from whatever soldiers did make it out alive, that it was horrible, that it was absolutely horrible, and that the Elensky government and the Ukraine military command pretty much abandoned them in Avdeyevka, that they should have retreated not days ago, but weeks ago, months ago. And they kept on trying to hold on, and it was a hopeless situation, and they never got any help, any relief from the government and the authorities in Kiev, and they were just left there to their fate. And we're getting these reports, and they're all over Ukraine social media, and people are furious. From what I've been reading, people are furious. Ukrainians are furious. The citizens of Ukraine are furious, but the military, the soldiers, they're absolutely furious with Syrskyi, with Elensky. Talk of a coup. There are a lot of people on social media and on the interwebs from the military, and Alexander talked about this in his video update yesterday. They're like calling for the removal of Syrskyi and the removal of the Elensky regime because of this debacle, this catastrophe in Avdeyevka. So we're starting to actually hear the calls for the removal of Elensky for a coup. So if Elensky is traveling back to Kiev, if he does decide to go back to Kiev, if and when, he is going to be returning to a Ukraine at his very weakest, at his absolute weakest, with many of the soldiers openly calling for his removal, furious at what happened in Avdeyevka. Avdeyevka is the turning point for the Elensky regime, not for the war. The war, Russia won this a long time ago, but for the Elensky regime, this is the turning point where it seemed like he still had some sort of support and some sort of a hold of the levers of power of the government and the government institutions, but now it looks like all of this is turning against him. So Klitschko was at that party. I wonder what they were telling Klitschko. Anyway, the Russians, they're not stopping at Avdeyevka. They launched attacks in the south as well, in Zaporozhye and in Rabotynya. You remember Rabotynya, the town that the Ukraine military captured 37 times in their great spring, winter, summer, fall counter-offensive. Yeah, Rabotynya, the Russians are mopping up the Ukraine military in Rabotynya as well. The very, very, very small area that Ukraine called a success. The only part of the great counter-offensive that the Ukraine military and the collective West had called a success. Well, the Russians are just wiping all of that away now. So this is all active defense. Keep in mind that the Russians have not even gone on the offensive yet. This is just part of their active defense operations. Can you imagine what's going to happen if the Russians actually do decide to go on the offensive? I mean, what's going to happen if they actually decide to advance, if this is active defense? So a terrible situation in Ukraine on the front lines for the Elensky regime. And Biden, he spoke about Avdeyevka. He was asked about Avdeyevka, and he's blaming the Republicans. Biden is blaming the Republicans because they did not get 61 billion to Ukraine, and he is saying that is the reason for the collapse in Avdeyevka. That's the story that the Biden White House is going to run with. If only they had gotten 61 billion to the Ukraine government, then Avdeyevka would not have fallen. Biden also warned the Republicans, because that's who he warned. He warned the Republicans that if they don't get the 61 billion, then more territory is going to fall to the Putin. Yeah, Biden actually said that. If we don't get more money to Ukraine, if we don't get the 61 billion to Ukraine, well, then we're going to have more Avdeyevkas in the future. That's going to happen whether 61 billion goes to Ukraine or not. That's a given. It's going to happen whether you get 61 billion or 600 billion to Ukraine. The Russians are going to do whatever they want to do. We don't know what their plans are, but if their plans are to advance further, then they're going to do that, whether you give 61 billion or 600 billion. But the reason that all of this is happening, according to the Biden White House, is because the Republicans did not approve 61 billion. It's nonsense. It is absolute nonsense. We have all of these shells. They're just sitting on the border with Poland. Millions and millions of shells are just right there. And all we need to release those shells, that ammunition, all we need is 61 billion. If we could just get 61 billion, then we'll hand over the shells to Ukraine, and they'll be able to push back the Russians in Avdeyevka. It's just nonsense. It's absolute fiction. But that's how they're going to spin this. 61 billion. 61 billion would have made all the difference. Not 62 billion, not 59 billion, 61 billion. That would have made the difference in Avdeyevka. So, what if they do approve the 61 billion eventually? What if they do give the 61 billion to Ukraine and it makes no difference, which is what's going to happen if they do give more money to Ukraine? If they give 61 billion to the Elensky regime and the Russians continue to win, what is the collective of us going to say then? What are they going to blame it on once that happens, if that happens? Who are they going to blame it on? What are they going to blame it on next? Oh, well, we need to give 160 billion. Did we say 61 billion? We meant 161 billion. That's going to make the difference. Is that what they're going to go with next? I'm kind of curious to see what excuse they're going to come up with if they do give the 61 billion and the Russians continue to win and to advance and to annihilate the NATO proxy. What's going to be the excuse? I'm kind of interested to see what narrative they're going to spin next. Anyway, that's the Biden White House. That's what they're going with. Biden actually communicated with Elensky. He said he spoke with Elensky, and he said that the United States continues to support Ukraine. And he's confident. Biden said he's confident that that Congress is going to get the money to Ukraine. Let's see. I'm very curious to see Congress give the 61 billion to Ukraine and to see Russia continue to do what they're doing, continue to win. And I'm curious to see what they're going to say, how they are going to lie to the American people next. So the Munich Security Conference had some interesting statements. Some very interesting statements at the MSC. Remember, it was the MSC last year, I believe, where Annalena made her famous 360 degrees statement. That was at the MSC. So, there's a lot that the MSC has to live up to in order to top Annalena's 360-degree comment. They didn't do too badly this time around either. There were some interesting, funny comments from the clowns in attendance. And I guess we're going to have to start with Elensky. He made a speech at the Munich Security Conference. He also did an interview with Christian Amanpour, and we'll get to that interview with Christian Amanpour in a bit. But Elensky, in his speech, he threatened Putin. Yep, he threatened Putin. 1 second. Elensky said, and I quote, "Putin openly justifies Hitler. In the future, he will either end up in the dock in The Hague or will be killed by one of his henchmen who are now killing for him." That is what Elensky said at his speech at the forum in Munich. I find this to be a very interesting statement from Elensky because Elensky hasn't understood that what he just said, the statement that he just made, has nothing to do with Putin. The script writers that gave Elensky this speech, that made this speech for him, they're not talking about Putin, and Elensky hasn't realized that, which I find it to be amazing. They're talking about you, Elensky. You don't understand that? I mean, you don't see it? It's as clear as day that this script, this speech, this threat towards Putin is not a threat towards Putin. It's in a way foreshadowing what they have planned for you. And it didn't click for him. So he was saying those words, and he's actually thinking that he's talking about the Putin and the Putin's fate, without realizing that you're talking about what could potentially be your fate. So, Elensky, he's just not getting it. He is not getting it. He's not understanding it. But anyway, that's what he said. He also warned the United States. He said that if the 61 billion is not given to him, then Ukraine's going to collapse, and the U.S. is going to have to clean up the mess. That's pretty much what he said. He says either give us 61 billion he said, either give us 61 billion or else Ukraine's going to collapse. Russia's going to win this war, and you're going to have to deal with it. An interesting threat to the United States, huh? Like the threat that a 10-year-old would make. There really is the threats of a 10-year-old. Either give us the money or else we're going to just collapse this thing. We're going to lose and collapse this thing, and then you're going to have to deal with it. Haha. You know, I mean, it's just crazy stuff, man. Absolutely crazy stuff. Elensky also said that Russia has an unfair advantage because their weapons are better. They have more of them. They make more weapons. They have better weapons. Their weapons fire have a greater range. They can fire further. They can strike further. And he says it's just an unfair advantage. Russia has better weapons, and he said that's an unfair advantage. He actually made that statement. What happened to all those wonder weapons? What happened to the javelins, the javelinas, the HIMARS, the Leopards, the Challengers, the Abrams, the Switchblade drones, the Storm Shadow missiles, the Scalp missiles? What happened to all those wonder weapons? I thought those wonder weapons were going to make all the difference. I thought it was the wonder weapons that were going to win this conflict. Now it's 61 billion. Now they need 61 billion to win the conflict. But before it was all the wonder weapons. Every couple of weeks it was a new wonder weapon. And those weapons, those NATO Collective West weapons, were so much better than the old Russian, Soviet, broken down shovels and washing machines. Now you have Elensky in Germany saying that the Russians have an unfair advantage. It's an unfair advantage because they make better weapons, and they make more of those better weapons. And then, as he's saying that Russia makes better weapons, they make more weapons, they make better weapons, he then says that the Russians in Avdeyevka suffered 7 times more casualties than Ukraine. Can't make this stuff up, man. Can't make this stuff up. On the one hand, he's saying that Russia has an unfair advantage. Their weapons are better. They have more weapons. They fire more artillery, more ammunition, do more damage. Their weapons fire further. But they suffered 7 times more losses in Avdeyevka. After the city has fallen to the Russians, the Russians have won, but, you know, they suffered 7 times more losses. So, yeah, it's almost like we won. You know, yeah, the Russians say that they've, captured Avdeyevka. And Shoigu did report yesterday to Putin that the Russians have captured Avdeyevka. It's official now. As the Russians have captured Avdeyevka, the most heavily fortified city in pretty much all of Ukraine. 10 years of NATO fortifications in Avdeyevka. It's a win for us because the Russians, they suffered 7 times more losses, even though they outmatch us across the board on everything. Yeah, how does that work? I don't know. But then we get to Elensky's interview with Amanpour, international correspondent and very sophisticated journalist, Christiane Amanpour. So she's sitting down with Elensky, and she's interviewing Elensky. And Elensky has a brain freeze. He has a brain freeze at Amanpour's softball question. It was incredible to watch. Elensky did not look good. He did not look good at all. He looks like he's in a terrible state. But Amanpour, I always say Amanpour. Amanpour, she's sitting down with Elensky at the Munich Security Conference, and everyone is watching this interview. And Amanpour, she asks Zelensky, Mr. President Zelensky, I'm Christiane Amanpour, a very sophisticated journalist and international correspondent, and my question to you is, as you have everyone in the audience, Republicans and lawmakers in the United States, what would you tell them with regards to the 61 billion? Some of them are here in attendance. What would you like to tell them about the 61 billion? I'm Christiane Amanpour, a very sophisticated journalist and international correspondent, President Zelensky. And Zelensky was like, Give me money. I mean, it was the weirdest thing. He had like a Biden freeze, and he couldn't answer that softball question. And Christiane Amanpour, a sophisticated journalist and international correspondent, she tried to help him out as much as possible, and he couldn't answer it. She's like, Mr. President Elensky, I'm Christiane Amanpour, a sophisticated journalist and international correspondent. The lawmakers, they're here. What would you like to tell them about the 61 billion that you have not received yet? I'm Christiane Amanpour, a very sophisticated journalist and international correspondent. And Elensky's like, I want to buy some homes. I mean, it was just weird. Very, very weird. Anyway, Pelosi, she spoke at the Munich Security Conference. What is Pelosi doing at the Munich Security Conference? Don't you have better things to do, Pelosi? Shouldn't you, my God, shouldn't you be in San Francisco with your family and your grandkids enjoying life? What are you doing at Munich? Anyway, she was there and she wanted to explain to the American people why so much money is going to Project Ukraine. Why is the U.S. spending so much money on Project Ukraine? This is what Pelosi had to say, and I quote, "Why are we doing that money to Ukraine when we have all these needs at home? We are doing it because we are protecting democracy." There you have it. That is why all of this stuff is going to Project Ukraine. That is why all this money and all this attention is focused on Project Ukraine, because according to Nancy Pelosi, it's all about democracy. Yeah, we have a southern border problem. Yeah, we have a homeless problem. Yeah, we have an inflation problem. Yeah, we're 34 trillion in debt. Yeah, we have crime and fentanyl and student loans and health care that needs fixing. But what takes priority is protecting democracy. And protecting democracy starts with Ukraine. That's ground zero when it comes to protecting democracy. As we try to lock up the Republican opposition to Biden, as we try to lock up Trump, it's all about protecting democracy in Ukraine. That's Pelosi in Munich. I can't believe that they're still going with this protecting democracy line. We need to get 61 billion to Ukraine in order to protect democracy. They're still going with this. I wonder if people are still buying this, if people are still believing this narrative. Baerbock, she spoke at Munich. Baerbock, Annalena 360, Annalena 720i. She was speaking in Munich, and she said that she gets all her news about Gaza from YouTube. That is what Annalena said. She gets all of her Gaza news via YouTube. Maybe not all. I don't think she said all. But she does get her Gaza news from YouTube. What channels is Annalena watching in order to formulate her Gaza policy? What channels on YouTube is she subscribed to as she formulates her Gaza war, Middle East policy? She's obviously not watching the right YouTube channels, that's for sure. Is this how she forms Ukraine foreign policy as well? Does she watch YouTube to get her news about Ukraine? Because if that's the case, she's definitely not watching the right YouTube channels. That's for sure. But yeah, one would think that Annalena is reading intel reports and she's getting all of these briefings about what's happening around the world, specifically in Gaza and the Middle East. And she's reading through all these documents and she's trying to understand the situation, and she's forming Germany's foreign policy around all of these intel reports and all this documentation that she has being given to her, that's been given to her. One would think that's what's happening, but nope. Annalena's watching YouTube. So if you do watch the right channels, then you probably do get some good information. But I don't think she's watching the right YouTube channels. That's for sure. Oh boy. So that's what Annalena said as she was speaking in Munich. And Ursula, she said that the EU is going to take these Russian frozen assets and they're going to use the money to make weapons for Ukraine. So Ursula said the quiet part out loud. She just came out with it and said, "Yep, we're going to steal the Russian frozen assets. We're going to destroy our financial system, trust in Europe's financial system. We're going to completely destroy it by stealing Russia's frozen assets so that we can make weapons for Ukraine." Okay, Ursula. Okay. Boy. So that was Ursula in Munich. And speaking about stealing Russia's frozen assets, we have news from the U.S. Justice Department. This is coming from the Justice Department website, that they have transferred approximately $500,000 in forfeited Russian funds to Estonia for benefit of Ukraine. I like how they use the word forfeited Russian funds. Stolen. They have transferred $500,000 in stolen Russian funds to Estonia for the benefit of Ukraine. Is that not the definition of money laundering? I mean, isn't that what washing money is all about? Because the United States cannot send the money directly to Ukraine for now. For now, they're prohibited to send the money from the Russian frozen assets, whatever money they've stolen from Russia, from Russian assets. They can't send it directly to Ukraine to the benefit of Ukraine. So what the Justice Department has announced on their website, they're the ones announcing this. They're giving it to Estonia so that Estonia can then give it to Ukraine. And when it gets to Ukraine, it's also going to get washed. This is incredible stuff, man. You can't make this stuff up. You know, people in the global south, countries in the global south, oligarchs, high net worth individuals, investors in the global south are going to be looking at this in horror. They're going to be horrified at this, at this statement from the Justice Department. You know, they're pulling out their dollars right now. They're saying, we got to get out of the dollar system right away. That's what they're saying. We got to get out of this thing. Man, I can't believe they announced this. You know, I would have said, if I was the Justice Department, I would have said something along the lines of, you know, we're transferring $500,000 in Russian forfeited. They use the word forfeited. It forfeited Russian funds to Estonia. And I would have just left it there. I would have just stopped there. You didn't have to say for the benefit of Ukraine. You could have just stopped the lie right there. Just, yeah, right there. We're taking forfeited Russian funds. We're going to take that money and give it to Estonia. Stop. Stop. Nope, they had to say for the benefit of Ukraine as well. Man, wow. Wow. Unbelievable stuff. So yeah, that happened. And let's do a couple of more stories before we get to a clown world. Let's see, Mark Rutte, he gave an interview on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference. The prime minister, is he still prime minister of the Netherlands? When are they going to get this guy out of there, man? Mark Rutte. Anyway, he spoke at the security conference on the sidelines, and he said that the Netherlands is going to be the next country to sign a security agreement with. Sit down here. To sign a security agreement with Elensky. So Germany's, they've got their security agreement. Um, France, they just signed their security agreement. Who else? UK, they've got their security agreement. I think some Baltic nations and maybe Poland, they signed a security agreement. I don't know. All these, I guess that's the trend now. It's cool. It's trendy now to sign a security agreement with Elensky. So Rutte said that they're next. They're next in signing the security agreement. More money to Elensky as the farmers. Well, we know the situation with the farmers, but Rutte doesn't care, doesn't seem too bothered with the farmer situation. Let's sign a 10-year security pact with Elensky. Yeah, that's what's important. Oh man. 83 lawmakers are saying that Biden needs to take a cognitive test. They're demanding that Biden take a cognitive test, for which I say no. Biden should not be required to take a cognitive test. I'm against this. I think this is the wrong way to go about this. What needs to happen is you need to get scientists and your top researchers to study Biden's brain and to understand how this gift, this superpower of speaking to dead people, how this works, and try to harness that power. Yeah, that's what should happen. This is not about a cognitive test. What needs to happen is research into the power, the gift that is Biden's brain, and figure out how he is communicating with the great beyond. Yeah, that's what should happen. And one more story before we get to the clown world. Ecuador Banana Gate. Banana Gate. Yep, this is an interesting one. Banana Gate. So there were reports that that Russia blinked with regards to Banana Gate. And this is originating from Bloomberg. They reported that because Russia was unable to find a substitute to bananas from Ecuador, that they are going to lift the ban on bananas being imported into Russia from Ecuador. And they're going to allow Ecuador. Well, Bloomberg didn't really say this. This is where Bloomberg left it a little bit hazy. They were a little bit. This was some gray area in Bloomberg's reporting, but they were hinting that Russia is going to allow Ecuador to export Russian Soviet weapons to the United States, and then the U.S. is going to give those weapons to Ukraine. And so Bloomberg was basically saying that Russia blinked, and they blinked because they couldn't find banana substitutes. And so they're just going to have to allow Ecuador to not only import bananas into Russia, to export bananas into Russia, but they're also going to just have to allow Ecuador to send the Russian and Soviet weapons, breaking the terms of their agreements, sending those weapons to the U.S., and the U.S. is going to send those weapons to Ukraine. So that's how Bloomberg presented it. Though Bloomberg, they didn't outright say that Ecuador is going to, at least from what I read, they didn't outright say that Ecuador is going to still send the weapons to the United States. They didn't make it very clear. At least it didn't seem very clear as to what Ecuador is going to do. Anyway, on the Russian side of things, you had the Russian ambassador to Ecuador told RIA Novosti that he has spoken with the Ecuador government, and they have said that they are not going to send the weapons to the United States. They've walked back that decision, and that is why Russia is going to be lifting the ban on the bananas, the import ban on the Ecuador bananas. And so we don't really know what the truth is. We'll find out, though. One thing is for sure. It does look like the ban on bananas from Ecuador has been lifted, and Ecuador is going to send their bananas to Russia. And what we don't know is whether Ecuador is going to send weapons to the United States, Russian weapons to the United States, which will then go to Ukraine, or if they've decided not to send the weapons to the United States. So that's the part that we don't know with regards to this story, but we'll find out. So I wanted to report on this the other day, but I couldn't figure out what's the truth here with regards to the Russian weapons that Ecuador has. Are they going to send them to the U.S. or are they not? So we don't know, but we're going to find out. We'll find out the truth. Did Russia blink or did Ecuador blink? All right, let's do a clown world. How are we doing on time? Oof. Yeah, I got to wrap this one up. Let's do a clown world, and we will wrap this one up. In this clown world, Elensky in Munich invited Trump to the front lines of Ukraine. President Elensky has offered to give Trump a tour of Kiev's battlefront with Russian forces, saying America's leading opposition presidential candidate should see the conflict with his own eyes before making policy decisions. If he will come, I'm ready even to go with him to the front line, Elensky said on Saturday at the Munich Security Conference. I think if we are in dialogue how to finish the war, we have to demonstrate to people who are decision makers what does it mean, the real war, not in Instagram. Not in Instagram, says the Instagram president, the president that relies on social media and Instagram and green screens and stuff like that, says that we shouldn't see this war like something on Instagram. Anyway, that's what Elensky said. He's inviting Trump to the front line. So look, is this Elensky saying that Trump is going to be president? Yeah, this is Elensky saying that Trump is going to be president. Biden is not going to be president. You can see it that way. But you could also see it as Elensky trying to make the Biden White House jealous, right? he could be doing that. He's definitely doing that. He's basically upset at the fact that 61 billion is not being sent to his government, and so he's basically telling the Biden White House, okay, so you don't want to support me, or you're unable to get to the Republicans to support me, Biden White House. Well, I'm just going to talk to Trump. I'm going to invite Trump to Ukraine. And, maybe this is Elensky's way of trying to freak out the globalist political class into giving him the 61 billion. Maybe he's thinking that they're going to freak out at this Trump invitation, and they're going to say, oh, my God, we can't have Trump visiting Elensky. That's not gonna look good. We can't have that happen. So give him 61 billion. Give him 61 billion so that he doesn't invite Trump to Kiev. That's kind of what Elensky appears to be doing. That seems to be his strategy. But of course, you could have something else going on, which I think is the most likely scenario here. I think Elensky is being ordered to invite Trump by the globalist political class to Kiev in order to hit Trump with the Elensky curse. That's what I think is going on. They've tried everything. They've tried everything they could to get Trump, to derail Trump. They've thrown everything at Trump, and nothing's working. And they're going to have to rely on the Elensky curse, the nuclear option, which is the Elensky curse and Elensky number 5. Trump, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't go to Kiev. Don't shake Elensky's hand, and definitely don't get a whiff of Elensky number 5. That's going to be the one thing that will derail Trump. Elensky curse and Elensky number 5 will bring down Trump. So don't fall for it, Trump. Do not accept this invitation from Elensky. So anyway, that's the cloud world. That's the video, theduran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop. 15% off all t-shirts. Take care.